And it's something also that I've been thinking about lately. You go on LinkedIn and you see posts from like authorities in this figure about like my playbook for you to do XYZ in 2 months, the hack for demand generation, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds like they have all the secrets. And maybe that, particular formula really worked for them in their business, but it wouldn't necessarily work for my business because mine is, in a very specific situation of it's like a little startup, but in a very well-known brand, right? So it's not the same as a completely unknown brand, right? Like I have a pretty big marketing budget, marketing team, even not my own team. I can rely on the general marketing team. So like the situation is never, copy paste. And I think that that's something that any marketer and any company kind of has to come to terms with. Like, how do you do that for your own business? And how much can you really learn from or copy from someone else? I think you can learn from everybody, but I don't think you can necessarily apply like for like.
Yeah, I think they have the new LinkedIn video now.
But you know what I mean? I see these, and everyone sounds so sure of themselves. They're like, I've got it for you. And I'm like, tell me, I want to know, what are the secrets to do? And then I see what they wrote. I'm like, yeah, we tried that. It didn't work. Or whatever the case might be. So.
Yeah, I know that very well, especially being now a consultant. Like everybody has an opinion, everybody has a formula that works, and not many people talk about the struggles. Like 90% of the time I need to sell, and only 10% of the time I'm doing my job, which is usually at night when I stop selling, right? And not many people talk about it. And it's the same with companies. It all depends where is your company located, who are the people in-house, what's their background, but then what's the product. There are so many nuances that affects, if you can implement something or not. Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of Funky Marketing Podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome Paula from Wix. She's VP of Enterprise there. Spent 7 years in a company. And the thing is, when most of us think about Wix, we think of a sleek, user-friendly site for small businesses, right? But here's a little twist. Wix is making bold moves in a B2B, showing us that easy to use and enterprise aren't so different after all. And Paula is here to share the inside story of how Wix is breaking into the B2B market and just maybe changing the way we think about simplicity and scale. So Paula, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. So let's kick it off by, what's new. That's something that a friend of mine usually using for the podcast, saying what's new and nice.
What's new and nice? I think what's new and nice in the world of marketing right now is where AI is going. And I know that AI is something that everybody has an opinion about and has talked about and is using. But what I am really excited about is I finally see the disjointed solutions of AI in marketing kind of coming together. At Wix, we use AI in our marketing ourselves. It's something that our users expect us to use or to use in our product. And up until now, I would say most of the teams in marketing using AI are using it kind of in silos. So content is using Claude and design is using whatever and broadcast something else. And so this big promise of the efficiencies it was going to bring everybody, it's not really there because everyone is still kind of separated. So what I'm starting to see now is like a single platform integration of multiple AI, let's call them solutions or tools that allow marketing teams to work on that, to work holistically in one place and really get some of those efficiency and quality advantages that that I feel like we were all promised 2 years ago when it kind of like made the big splash, but I didn't really see. And Wix is kind of one of those companies that's working on that. So our product isn't ready yet, but in April we're launching something that is meant to make that AI experience for marketers much better. So that's what's new and nice.
I love that. And I love the perspective of, the place AI has inside the company, right? Connecting the teams and basically eliminating the silos. Because that's exactly what I'm seeing. Usually, when I'm a guest on a podcast and I work with companies and they say how you use AI, right? And they expect you to give them the answers. I use it to, I don't know, write copy for LinkedIn. I use it for the website copy. Usually it's writing text, then maybe visuals, those kind of things. But usually, I tell them that I'm using them to kind of connect me the dots of how the buyer journey is going. For
Mhm.
example, I talk to the customers and I use AI to help me, uncover the pattern that they are using to kind of convert and all those
Yeah.
things. So there, that's actually the greatest value in AI.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So tell me about Wix, because I think we are kind of reshaping the concept of B2B for website builders, right? So usually B2B has traditionally been a space for specialized tools, and now you're kind of like changing the norm, right? Making it easy, feel like something that enterprises can use as well.
Yeah. So let me tell you about that. So Wix has been on the market for 16 years, 17 years actually now, or 18 years. No, we just turned 18. I keep adding years. And when we started, like you said, it was really meant for the solopreneur, that person who wanted to kind of stress test their side hustle idea. And we think we really like succeeded in that market. We have 280 million users worldwide across 180 countries. A lot of people know about Wix, and usually when I talk about where I work, they're like, oh, I made my wedding site on Wix, I sold my knitting whatever on Wix, and that's always really nice to hear. But as a tech company, Wix really followed the philosophy of, eat your own dog food. So our own marketing assets, homepage, everything, we started building on Wix itself, in part because we wanted to give our product team feedback on what was good and what wasn't, what needed more work, but also just because we really believed in the solution itself. And Wix's marketing team is 400 people. We have all sorts of different functions within it. Like you've got performance marketing, brand marketing, kind of everything you name it, we're doing it. And one day we kind of turned around and we're like, Wix is pretty big. You know what I mean? Like we need to
Yes.
have extreme levels of uptime. It has to be super stable. It needs to be obviously very good performance in SEO, and it's great that we're able to use our own product, even though our threshold, like our standards of the product, are so high. And it kind of sparked this realization that it's not, even though it's easy to use, it's not just for small businesses. It doesn't have to be so hard, right? That's kind of the realization. Just because you work at a large organization doesn't mean that getting your marketing assets in front of your audience should take you 6 months. And this is
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I really, really believe in. My background before marketing was in operations and marketing operations. So for me, there's always this balance between the quality of what you're getting out, but also what did that process look like? How long did it take you to get out there? And I'm sure you've talked about this a lot of times with your clients. If you are not testing, which means if you're not changing, if you're not updating, you're kind of missing the opportunities of what your audience is telling you. And so often I'll talk to marketing teams of very, very big organizations that you'd think they've got deep pockets, like no issues there. But they're just really stuck in terms of their like getting online literally like in 2024. And it's not because they have a bad product, it's because the products that they have are not set up to be agile, right? They're very technical, they depend on developers, there's all sorts of workflows that are complicated around it. And what's great about Wix is because it was built with this ease of use in mind, transferring that simplicity of execution means that marketing teams can be much more agile. And I think having ourselves as a use case really helps, because I can talk about how our team uses the product and what it enables us to do. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important to be able to give that benefit also to larger businesses and not just smaller ones.
Yeah, extremely important. I mean, usually even this mid-sized businesses, they all look up to their, competitors, the bigger ones, and they create the politics inside the company, and then everything is slow. And if the tools they're using are also, too segmented, and it takes time for them to go in, and teams work, separately on different tools, even, it creates the confusion anywhere.
Yeah.
And it gets us to the point. I usually like to use that example because it shows exactly how it works. You ask somebody from the corporation, what's happening with your LinkedIn, and they say, oh, I'm preparing a post, but you're not posting anything. But I'm preparing a post. When is that post going out? Now it's November. They usually say end of next summer, right? And that
End of
shows you
next summer.
how slow
Wow.
it is.
Yeah. But it's true. It's true. It is that it's sometimes that slow. And if marketing is all about getting your message in front of the right user at the right time is one of the biggest factors. Where are they? When are they paying attention? And especially for B2B businesses, these sales cycles are super long. It's not one touch point, it's many. So you need to generate content on a regular basis. It's not a one and done.
I totally agree. So talking about the users. So now basically what you need to do and what you are doing is you need to change the perception of Wix from a consumer focused brand, right, to a B2B solution.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how do you guys convince decision maker in big companies that we can support the complexity of all the demands that they have over there. I mean, if you can share even some of the reactions that has been when you told them this is what we are building, look at this, what were the reactions?
Yeah. I think sometimes we hear surprise at first, but it takes, a little bit of example, like for instance, explaining that we use the product ourselves, talking about our own experiences, like that always opens a lot of doors. But we also have some big clients, and I think having that those testimonials give an extra level of credibility to the product. So, we have Clarence, HelloFresh, brands that people recognize and know they've done their due diligence and not, risking anything by trying this here. That helps a lot. Our sales team also really believes in like enabling proof of concept trials. Because I think when you try, like if you try before you buy, you're going to be more convinced purchaser. And I think it's also easier to get some internal buy-in from whichever stakeholders you have to deal with in the company. So for our existing enterprise solution, we don't have a free trial, but it is something that we're implementing for the marketing solution that I mentioned. So just giving your prospects a taste of the product, letting them stress test it a bit is really helpful. And then, when it comes to more complex situations, because obviously once you're going into these really up market deals, it's like very specific requirements. We need it to be compliant with whatever, and it needs to connect with this specific ERP. So we have a CTO, and all of our tech team is really enabling our sales team to have informed conversations with those stakeholders so that they can really look under the hood and see, okay, I need to be HIPAA compliant, or I need to be whatever compliant. And then you understand through understanding how the product is built, if it is able to deliver what we promise. So those, it's building trust. It kind of happens in a lot of stages. You start first with brand awareness and being an authority, maybe in those areas that your champion or your end user will be interested in. But eventually, I think to close a deal, your sales team does a lot more than marketing does in helping address the concerns that, or doubts that a buyer might have.
Exactly. I mean, you can make them aware, you can make them engage, but sales actually needs to sell that. So talking about that, tell me a little bit about differentiation. How do you look at that? How is Wix different than other tools that are out there on the market?
Yeah. The CMS market, it's crowded. There are a lot of players, and I think I think it's really important to kind of figure out where, where your strengths are and understand where they aren't. So one of the things that we're really adamant about is if a deal comes our way that we know we're not the right fit for, we would be the first ones to say, because it doesn't serve anybody to, just take the money basically for a year and then have that user churn when they figure out that it's not going to be the right fit for them. So from that point of view, I think it's important just for your long-term reputation to understand like where you play, where you're a more dominant player. And then the other thing I think for us, when we moved into this space, we really wanted to figure out like what is exactly our unique value proposition. And partly it has to do with the ease of use, right? Like if you go to more code heavy sites, you require developers, it gets more complicated. So the Webflows of the world, or maybe if you're just like coding everything in-house, there's a big advantage there. But I think another big differentiator of that Wix has is it's very design forward. So you
Mm-hmm.
can build very beautiful things or sites, particularly with Wix. And that's not always the case with some of the competitors on the market where it's a little bit harder to get some of those effects. Now, design is not going to be the main selling point for every single case out there, but where you are dealing with a design first company, that is a very important that is an important factor. So if you combine, I really need to get to market fast and I don't want to do it with, a team of developers or an agency that I have to also, work with externally, that's where we kind of find our sweet spot.
I'm thinking, do I have more questions around that? But the one that comes to my mind, and usually, because we talked about influencer marketing and those kind of things outside of the podcast, and usually when I was talking to the people in my surroundings, they said like Wix is building a B2B product, and those kind of things. And I guess that's the common reaction, because what you said at the beginning, people were designing, I don't know, websites for weddings and those kind of things. So my question would be, how do you guys actually touch the point when they say, are you on that level? Compared to, usually like B2B enterprise product are like these complex software solutions, built over the years, and they're, multi-present in the space.
Yeah. The specific doubts, I think, really depend on the company and what they're trying to use it for. But often, the doubt doesn't come from the fact that we're successful with small businesses. I think when you're dealing with that kind of deal, those questions would come to any vendor, whether they also
Mm-hmm.
happen to serve smaller businesses or not. So that's why being as transparent as we're able in how the product is set up, where our strengths and weaknesses are, what existing users we have that we've helped with similar challenges has really helped. But I think basically it comes down to the actual technology and walking through the CTO of the prospect company with our CTO, and they kind of sit together and iron out the details and the doubts. And often there are things that we build custom, and that's because it doesn't come out of the box for that level of complexity. It helps, right? It shouldn't, that level of complexity shouldn't come out of the box. So I think that also helps in reassuring any skeptics who might think Wix is for smaller businesses only.
Yeah, let's talk about go-to-market and all these things. You mentioned transparency, and I think you are one of the few companies which is kind of frustrating in 2024 to see who are kind of sharing openly the things you work on, struggles also, not only the good things. And I know by talking with you that a lot of people from the team are also have a startup background.
Mm-hmm.
Or a different, not corpo background, and tell me how how you look at the go-to-market, and how is the diversity of people from the team actually influencing that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So I think Wix is a company that really likes to grow people from inside. And when we built out this enterprise product, which I think it's very clear, very different from our core product. You would have thought, in another public company, CEO would call someone else and be like, hey, who would you recommend to run this marketing team, run this sales team, run this whatever? And that's not what happened. We kind of took everyone from inside and started to build the go-to-market team that way. And, that's not without its challenges, right? So for me, for instance, had very little B2B marketing experience. We work also with agencies, so it had to do more with that. But it's still very different from an enterprise sales cycle, like different way of marketing, different way of talking to them. And a lot of it has to kind of do with educating yourself and testing and trying. And I think that goes back to what you're saying, the startup DNA, which, sometimes I laugh when people say, oh, but it's, Wix is like a startup. I'm like, yeah, it's a startup with 6,000 people in it. But it is true that there is something about the way we manage things that is really around trial and error, and understanding that, okay, you could bring someone that came from a different company that grew their enterprise business from X to X, but they don't necessarily know Wix, and just because it worked there doesn't mean it will work here. So I think that has made us a bit more confident in just trying different things, trying our own thing. And not everything has worked, definitely not. But I don't think it would have necessarily worked so much better with someone from the outside. And something also that I've been thinking about lately, you go on LinkedIn and you see posts from like authorities in this figure about like, my playbook for you to do XYZ in 2 months, the hack for demand generation, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds like they have all the secrets. And maybe that, particular formula really worked for them in their business, but it wouldn't necessarily work for my business, because mine is, in a very specific situation of, it's like a little startup, but in a very well-known brand, right? So it's not the same as a completely unknown brand, right? Like I have a pretty big marketing budget, marketing team, even not my own team. I can rely on the general marketing team. So like the situation is never, copy paste. And I think that that's something that any marketer and any company kind of has to come to terms with. Like, how do you do that for your own business, and how much can you really learn from or copy from someone else? I think you can learn from everybody, but I don't think you can necessarily apply like for like.
Yeah, I think they have the new LinkedIn video now.
But you know what I mean? I see these, and everyone sounds so sure of themselves. They're like, I've got it for you. And I'm like, tell me, I want to know, what are the secrets to do? And then I see what they wrote. I'm like, yeah, we tried that. It didn't work. Or whatever the case might be. So
yeah, I know that very well, especially being now a consultant. Like everybody has an opinion, everybody has a formula that works, and not many people talk about the struggles. Like 90% of the time I need to sell, and only 10% of the time I'm doing my job, which is usually at night when I stop selling.
yeah.
Right, and not many people talk about it. And it's the same with companies. It all depends, where is your company located, who are the people in house, what's their background, but then what's the product. There are so many nuances that affects if you can implement something or no.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing that's kind of interesting to me, looking at what you guys are doing, it reminds me of Drift back in the days. I don't know if you know the story. I shared it on the last episode on the podcast, but they organize executive dinners.
Mm-hmm.
Then they came up with a book, Conversational Marketing, right? Then they shared like, I don't know, 42, 47 things on scale that you can implement so you build a hypergrowth company, those kind of things. Then they had a podcast with the CEO and CMO, Dave Gerhardt. Now we all know him from different businesses. And they were active on Twitter back in the days. And then it followed up by the team posting, liking, commenting on LinkedIn. And they were the first company, I think, that kind of took over the LinkedIn. So it kind of reminds me of you because you are also mixing like online things with offline and a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, it's not even, I mean, I think everyone keeps saying it. If you talk to anyone who works in demand gen for B2B, you need so many touch points because you have an audience that you assume you have a good product for, but they might not know that you have this product. And then once you get them to the awareness phase, great, but they're still in contract for another 10 months. So you have to stay kind of relevant in their mind and keep reminding them about why, Wix Studio could be the right solution for their business. So I think that's definitely a multi-touch point thought leadership approach is definitely something that we're working on, and we'll continue to work on for the future for timing. We've definitely seen success in doing so on other aspects of the business, so that's always promising. But I think at the end of the day, you're still trying to engage individuals in some way, even if you're selling to a business. So the way we think about it is if it was me, if I was buying, what would I need to see and hear and think about in order to take Wix Studio as a solution into account? And I was just talking to Mejia about it today because we recently purchased Gong, and I was thinking through like what was that process like. I first heard about them when I was working initially on B2B and someone recommended their content. So I looked at them almost like as an example in marketing, even though their core offerings.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of stayed top of mind for me for a while. And now I'm working in a go-to-market team and it came time to like replace software. And I was like, God, let's check them out. And, it's like you leave little breadcrumbs and hope that, you find your fit. But it's hard. It's really hard because you're both casting a very wide net, and you don't know what will come up, and you don't know how long it will take. So it takes a bit of time to kind of figure out what your life, the cycle of your sales cycle will be, how long it will be, how to kind of balance those more net approach with the ABM tactics, and even the ABM, I think it's not necessarily the right fit for every company. I'm not sure, to be honest, for our solution, to what extent it makes sense, because our product it doesn't have the highest ACV. So really investing a lot in like whatever, even 100 companies in a year, it's like you could end up with very little ROI. So yeah, we're in this interesting kind of in between, like the volume direct to consumer business that we know really well, and it's not so targeted. So we're really trying to find that balance, and I think we'll probably continue to play that game, as the product evolves and we evolve in terms of in our go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, I think what works for you, at least it should, is the communities, right? And it's the new thing that we didn't have it like a few years ago, like digital communities, smaller ones connecting like marketers, agencies, demand gen folks, all different groups. When you have, at least 10 people that you know and trust, and you can ask them about different tools, about, anything, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you using any of those? Doing any activities related
We're
to?
starting to. This is fairly new in our playbook, but yeah, we're really starting to work with actually with existing communities and creating maybe educational like marketing content that isn't necessarily sponsored by Wix, but might have examples of how you apply that learning on the Wix Studio platform. So, in general, I would say our approach is bring as much value as possible and have the product kind of as a second layer rather than what I would have called our more traditional approach. It's like YouTube video, someone using the product, sending them to a landing page, right? It's way less direct to sales funnel. Yeah, but it's I'm very interested in seeing how that community aspect evolves, because I do think that you're right. The word of mouth is a huge like trust builder, right? I was listening to an interview on a podcast, now I can't remember which one, and they were saying that like the way IT buyers buy is first of all they'll like call their friends and be like, do you know the software? Like, does it sound legit? So yeah, I think we have to be there, be in the minds of people, and the more experience they have with our product, obviously the better and more able they'll be to speak in our favor.
Yeah. That's exactly true. From my experience, what I'm seeing is we buy in three ways. So we ask on social. We called 3, 4 brands that we know, somebody who is our peers, maybe, somebody more experienced in the industry. So we can ask them directly, did you use that tool? Do you trust that marketer or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is communities, right? When you have 10 people that you trust, so it's okay to ask them. And the goal of marketing is that your name appears in those conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts on, because I see a lot of people talk about, SEO still, about PPC, about advertising, different things. And I think that we are too much focused on that instead of focusing on the platforms which are not owned by us when people spend time.
Mm-hmm.
Hang around with each other, for example, like LinkedIn, like maybe YouTube, those smaller communities, those like they read financial news, I don't know, like whatever it is. But I think we talk much less about those things, because that's when you said like somebody buys once in, for example, like 4 years. And we need to become top of mind and stay top of mind for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think people like to talk about ads and PPC and SEO because it's like the traditional, it's like what we're familiar with, right? And even I can get caught up in some of those debates because there's something so comfortable in what's familiar, right? But the way people buy and, like you said, where people spend time, I think it's you're kind of kidding yourself if you think one ad is going to convert a user of that, of at least for the size that we're talking about deal. So while an ad can lead to one of the 8, 10, 15 touch points, it's not the thing that's gonna, it's not gonna have the ROI of the sale itself. So, I think if you're in marketing, you're also in the entertainment business, because you are dealing with humans who are in a world where they're online like from the moment they wake up until they go to sleep, and there's so much information. You talked about LinkedIn. LinkedIn also has ads. If you like, I play this little experiment every once in a while where I screenshot how many ads on LinkedIn I'm exposed to in 1-2 minutes, something like that. And it's a lot. It's like 10, 15 ads. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. And kind of your brain, as you scroll, knows what to ignore and what to engage with. And I think the secret there for marketers, whatever business, is how do you make your ads feel more like actual content? And how do you make your content promote your product more? Like, how do you find the balance between those two things? So yeah, just kind of taking a step back and engaging with your own, whether it's your ad or your content or your thought leadership post, whatever, as not as yourself, but as the audience that you're trying to talk to, and the context that they're in. But that's really hard to do, right, on a daily basis when you also have stakeholders and teams and everyone's like, oh, can you make this post, whatever, viral, and all these crazy requests that marketers get. So.
Yeah. You mentioned an important thing, and I usually say that that's the thing that I'm missing. I'm calling it funk. That's why it's funky marketing. It's that engagement or entertaining part. Mm-hmm. When you actually, invite everybody to the party and you are the one standing alone in the corner, if you don't have that one specific thing. And for example, that you mentioned ads, like using memes in ads, for example, is the thing that will make you, oh, that's interesting. Or you can simplify the complex term or explain something like that. And I think that's that entertaining part is something that is missing, and it's really hard to do to a lot of B2B companies. I'm
Yes.
saying that because there are so many people in leadership who are introverts, people who work on a product, right? Engineers. And it's not easy for them to be entertaining and to be outgoing and to record videos and whatever it is that we do on TikTok, on YouTube, shorts, or whatever it is. And for example, like this kind of conversation, it's perfectly okay, but it's only educational.
Yeah.
We are missing the entertaining part.
Yeah.
So, and I guess like LinkedIn is now becoming sort of a platform where we can actually test things out in a shorter videos, and then we can see who can dominate the YouTube as a next step, because
Yeah.
YouTube is like the platform when you can actually build a brand and establish a brand over there.
Mhm. Yeah. So YouTube is not currently one that we're playing in too much, apart from like typical ads and stuff like that. But it's an interesting one to consider. It's just, every time you put content out there, it has to be worth it, right? So you have
Yeah.
to choose what you double down on. But that could be the challenge for 2025. How do we make interesting YouTube content as well? Um,
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for everybody. I'm kind of using now, because I use Opus to kind of edit me the videos and give me short clips and those kind of things. And I just repost them from Opus on TikTok and YouTube. And I see what sticks, what people react to. And then I share it on LinkedIn if it gets comments or
that's a
those
good
kind of things.
test. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, not many people are commenting, but when they comment, I share it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But for example, like on TikTok, each post gets like 700 views, which is actually great. And I post 3 per day. So
Wow.
it's
Hold on. 3
so
per
it's
day.
I mean it's very easy when you record a podcast at least once a week.
That's true.
Right. You have a lot of content, and I cannot post it on LinkedIn because it will oversaturate everything.
Yeah.
So on TikTok it's different. So I test things out and see how it goes. But tell me a little bit about how do you approach the thought leadership part?
Well, I have a controversial thing to say. No, I don't think it's actually that controversial. I think you have to have thoughts to be a thought leader. I've like been in so many situations where, we're talking to someone from a different company and they're like, I told my content writer to write my LinkedIn post for me. And I'm like, how? How is someone going to do your thought leadership for you? Um, so yeah, I think you got to have your own thoughts for your thought leadership. And not only that, I think it helps when you sit down and think about, I've worked in this industry for X number of years. What do I have to like? What do I have an opinion about? Right? It's basically that's what it is. You
It
don't even
is,
have.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be true for everyone. It's like, what did I learn? What did I have an opinion about? And kind of the more you do it, the more you realize you have. At least I realized I have way more opinions than I thought I did. I'm like, "God, like 3 opinions today. That's a lot of posts. And so, kind of the way we tackle it is, it turns out I have a lot of opinions on marketing, and I'll tease out maybe one concept on a post, and then that becomes a webinar or that becomes an interview, and you kind of repurpose content that way. But I think about it as, if I was in a room with other marketers, what would I want to share with them, and hope that they also have something to say back about the thing that I noticed or learned from or whatever. And I think it's pretty obvious when you see that, there are C-level, whatever, people not writing their own content. It just sounds like there's a little bit of a distance. There's more of like a company brand voice. And I get it. Like, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's a writer. Not everybody wants to be, with, like, it's weird. Like, it's still weird for me to post videos on LinkedIn. I'm like, not super comfortable with it, but I've embraced it. So I get that there's that, that hesitation there, but, kind of once you do it, you're like, okay, I made a video and some people commented and they liked it. And if someone didn't like it, I didn't find out about it. Most people on LinkedIn, turns out, are quite nice. So it helps bring the barrier to posting down. But yeah, I think if you're doing thought leadership, like, please make it authentic thought leadership. Like, you have an opinion, just be confident enough to kind of put it together in words or in writing. Yeah, I think that that's the main advice I would give.
Yeah, I think one thing that definitely, we need to have if we are writing on LinkedIn, okay, thought part, yes, you need to have a fresh perspective on the things. But one thing I always say, you need to have something that at least 10% of your audience disagrees with,
Mm,
right? Because that will make, others engage. That will make them, like just move them a little bit on the side. So it itches them and they start responding on saying
yeah,
things.
that's true. That's true. I think if you're able to have, it's not even a hot take, but something that's not, like super vanilla, then yeah, you're gonna probably get more engagement. And by the way, I think that that is thought leadership, right? Because if it's so vanilla, then it's not a new thought. So, thought leadership, you got to lead with your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. An advice I can give to the people working with thought leaders is, you can help them with the post, but make them create their own hooks and post their own posts,
Mhm.
because that way, they learn that, okay, this is, they look at a post, they say it doesn't look like me, or I want to give it an edge, or something like that, and they learn if they post the post, then actually they care about what happened. If you just schedule it, somebody else does it, they don't know where it goes out, and they don't
Mhm.
care. But this
Yeah.
way they feel like, oh, I posted this, it's not
And
something to play with.
yeah. And whoever is writing that post needs to spend a lot of time with that person and really understand their voice. Otherwise, you do get that like inauthentic sound, almost like an AI, but it's not. Yeah, it's a person, but it doesn't sound. It doesn't sound like. Yeah, and I think the other thing, if you are working with a thought leader, that you're trying to help them like bring out that those nuggets of insight, you can also really be frank with them about what isn't really thought leadership. Like I had situations where someone wanted to post something and I looked at it and I'm like, listen, talking about how you're user centric, it's just not news anymore. Like everybody's user centric. Maybe it was
Yes.
news 10 years ago or 15 years ago when you started as a whatever in this company, but if you talk about that now, it just sounds like if you're talking to me about remote work, like it's very 2021. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah, it is. But look, in 2019, early 2020, I thought that, talking about moving from lead gen to demand gen was something that, and MQLs wasn't going to be a topic. In 2024, we are still talking about those
I wish it
topics.
wasn't a topic. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very hard to change how businesses think about growth, right? So, like, I think a lot of marketers are past it, but they work in organizations where, you're still working with as part of a larger go-to-market team and everything is set up as like what percentage of MQLs are becoming SQLs and your finance team is like, ugh. So it's hard to shift everybody to this at the same pace. But yeah, I wish that that conversation did as well.
Yeah, so talking about growth, especially long-term growth and a vision. Tell me, how do you see Wix with a new product uncovers and enrolls? And let me think about the better question. How does winning look like?
Oh wow. Okay, so I'm going to give a really ambitious answer. What am I? I and this is very product dependent. So there are some things that marketing can do and some things marketing can't do. I can help enable this vision, but I definitely can't do it alone. I really hope that the product we're working on now is the way marketing teams will work from 2025 onward. Like, I really hope that that is the product that we're building, because that is the message that I want to be talking about. And if it isn't, then I can't say that that's what we're doing. But for me, success is we're starting, it's like when people got on email or the internet. Like, I really want this to be a game changer in terms of how marketing teams go to market, because it just seems like the technology is there. Just someone needs to put it together, and then if I can help bring in users and understand, that is the future. That's the goal for me.
I love that. Anything that we didn't mention?
Anything we didn't mention? Um, what can I say? No, I mean, I think there's a lot around process management that is way less sexy that marketers don't talk about a lot. Like I hear a lot
Mm-hmm.
about demand generation and lead quality, and all those things are really important. Don't get me wrong, but I find that there's the analog component of how we work that is also really critical. And I find, as much as I love to talk about AI and whatever tech stack, there's like how humans work and how your team is set up and who you choose to be in your team that is under maybe analyzed at the moment. If I think about the thought leadership I'm reading about, it's like how to make your B2B landing page convert. Yeah, it's critical, but does your team know how to talk to each other? How many times do you give the brief to your designer or even the agency you work with? Like, are there ways to optimize there? Because I do think that, going back to the time component of like marketing, while technology will be able to give us a lot of like a big leg up, especially as things get, advanced. Um, as long as humans are in the driver's seat, we're also the bottleneck. What is it in our teams that we can do maybe a bit better in terms of how we manage people, the expectations we set, the deadlines we set, the quality of the briefs, the clarity of the goal. I was recently speaking on a different podcast about what makes a good ad. And I was like, start with the goal, because if you don't have a clear goal, guess what? Your ad will absolutely fail. And that's true of any marketing project or campaign. You need very clear North Star of where you're trying to get to make sure everyone is aligned, deadlines, the basics. Like the basics are really important. Yeah.
Totally agree. You reminded me now of a thing that I'm seeing more and more often is, what we are measured on,
Mm-hmm.
we as marketers, usually it dooms us or it makes us successful. Because
Mm-hmm.
usually metrics are not necessarily related to the goal,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they tell us this is what you should be measured on. That's what we are tracking. And then the goal is something else.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. I think it's changing as we are getting access to the CRMs. Like a year ago, imagine so many marketers didn't have access to the CRM. So
Yeah.
now they're basics, as you say. So now they can learn how the business is actually making money
Yeah.
and be closer to it and know what's their role inside of it.
Yeah. But at the same time, there are efforts like, brand awareness that are very long term and kind of multi tactic approach, where, my goal might be like, I want more people to know about what Wix Studio is and our solutions for marketers, but I won't be able to measure the success of any single initiative, which means that I need to be very good at stakeholder management internally and explain
Exactly.
why I'm putting money on this and not that, why whatever post we didn't convert into like 10 demos after one day. Because the other curse marketing has is that I think everyone thinks they understand how
Mm-hmm.
to do it, and that if they were in our shoes, it would be like, oh well, it's whatever. Like you make an ad and then you get a demo and then you close a deal. That's easy, and it's not. And so you have to kind of manage those conversations internally or with your clients, right, to make sure that they understand that an individual tactic may not be measurable in a way, right? It's only when you take them together over a period of time. So you can think about how to, set up your little experiments in a way that makes it more easy to understand what works and what doesn't. But yeah, there's a level of like faith in your approach that you kind of have to stick with it a little bit to see what works and what doesn't, which is hard.
Yeah, I love that. And that's actually, I'm going to invite you again in 2025 to talk about how to actually report your actions to the C level and how it all goes and how to actually say, this is the reasons why we are doing this, and
Mhm.
usually it's, this is what we are tracking this month and the next 3 months. And then if it gets to this point, we go and we measure other things. And
Yeah.
it's so important. I mean, communication is a skill, and I think a lot of people need to work more on developing those skills.
Yeah, probably one of the most important skill sets a marketer in a managerial level will have is how you communicate upwards and to your team. For sure.
Love it. Tell me, where can people find more information about you, about Wix, about Wix Studio, and anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always super happy to connect. If there's anything that I shared that anyone wants to know more about, I am an open book. And so that's a great place to connect with me. And then in terms of Wix Studio, obviously we have our website. We are good at making those, so you can find us there. But also, if there's a specific question about our product that you have and want to know more about, I'm also happy to answer that. Speaking of communities, I think marketers we need them. We're all in this together. So yeah, please reach out if I said anything that was interesting.
Totally agree. Please listen to Paula. And this is the moment in episode when I tell you to go back to the beginning, listen everything again. Paula share a lot of stuff. So make sure to stop if you need to understand something more deeply, if you need to get more context. She just told you that you can shoot her a message on LinkedIn. Do that. I'd be happy to, if I hear that you said that you are coming from the Funky B2B Marketing Podcast, right? That would be new. Let's see if it happens eventually. Paula, thank you very much for being here with me, with us, for sharing how Wix is approaching developing the B2B product and your thoughts about marketing, leadership, and all this stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure.
Likewise. Guys, keep it funky. Cheers. See you in another episode.